because you want to talk. Otherwise, we're all...
Oh, Marjohnny yielded this time.
Okay, so then it's David. David, no, Marjohnny. David was before. David was before that. David, go ahead.
My personal opinion is that it would make sense at this point to kind of stop talking about contract ed within the AS because of the political opinion that's come out. If the school wants to continue to try the program, they'll have to fight a protracted legal battle. I believe was my understanding. I don't know as much as some. But they would also face continued student protest. And I believe these are appropriate counteractions to contract ed. I think we should start talking about our own solutions as an AS. We are our own body. We can enact solutions on our own. We have the power to do so. And I think we should start. I think the way to do that is by building the 5-year plan. And the process of that is you form a committee to create one, and a majority vote by the board would pass the 5-year plan. By the way, Harrison can do this at any time. It's within his enumerated powers to form committees, and he doesn't have to do so in an open session. Cameron has suggested that we don't rush to a decision, but I'm not sure what we would be rushing to a decision about, because there aren't really choices right now. And I think we have to create choices before we make decisions. I know there's the decision about contract ed or not, but I believe it's a good idea to form alternatives.
Point of info, I meant the Advance Your Dreams itself. That was a rush decision. That's what I meant. I don't know what you're referencing.
All right, I agree we should rush that. I believe it was Cameron who said we should be doing what the students need and how are we reaching out. I was proposed an answer by a student who stopped me in the hall because I made a presentation to his class once before about the March and March. And he pointed out that we do not have open communication channels with the student body, the AS doesn't. And he stopped me in the hall and asked me to get this done. That if the administration, well, he suggested for the elections that there wasn't much publicity. He said, well, why don't you just send an email to all the students? And I said, well, we've tried that before, but the department who's in control of the student email list says, no, you can't do it, because they get some complaint emails when we send out those emails to the entire student body, because some people aren't interested in hearing about campus issues. When I told him that, he said, well, why don't you put it on the ballot and get it voted on by students and get it passed if students want to be communicated to by their student government organization. And I said...
Repeat the last point again, that interests me.
Which one?
Would you repeat the last point one more time, please? The point you just made.
Okay, why don't we put it on the ballot? For the current elections, unfortunately, it didn't make it on the Constitution Committee. We had some issues with joint council.
May I point of information? To put on the ballot that we have are allowed to put out mass emails as a body, associated student body.
Right. And I'm also unsure whether our Constitution has the jurisdiction to enforce that clause that were in our Constitution. What I think we can definitely do, that the administration and the AS can agree on, is that we have an opt-out news blast to the student body from the AS. So if you don't want to receive campus information, you can just say, I don't want to receive this, I see it as a nuisance. And then we can have a system, a channel of communication with the rest of the student body who does want to know.
Don't forget to unsubscribe.
Yeah. And a good model for that would be the University of Colorado. Person has told me in the past that they have some kind of ridiculously high involvement rate at that college, that all their events always sell out, and they're very involved, and I think that would be a very good model for us to work off of, as long as we're given permission to communicate with the students. I agree that if the Board of Trustees asks us to say what we mean and say we can't pay for something, that we enumerate what we mean by that. It may seem facetious, but it's important to agree on terms while we're using them. Language can be powerful when we know what both sides mean. And I think that's everything I had to say. Just to finish up, I do think that contract ed is not the conversation for us to have, that we can start to propose the 5-year plan, other solutions to it. But a fact sheet would be very useful, so that students at least know what contract ed was, what's going on now, so on and so forth.
Harrison?
Okay, I just want to talk to everyone briefly about the email list. I think it's interesting that we're not able to communicate. Every other constituency is allowed to communicate with their constituencies. It's unprecedented if you told the classified you're not going to be able to speak with your constituents.
Not unprecedented.
No, but it's, I mean, really, so I want to talk about institutional power. So when you take these things to a referendum, anyone who has institutional power to send an email to 35,000 students, that's not the students. So we have inherent disadvantages to communicate with students, and we're not paid. And we need to, once you start understanding how the system works, really, then you start saying, well, you know, there's some disadvantages for students, right? Like, and we can go into hours of lengthy conversations about that, providing facts. Regarding other fact sheets and specifics about a policy which has never happened before, you're saying, what is specific about this that you don't like? I'm saying, firstly, it's illegal, it's never been enacted, and so how can I bring you facts for something that's never been done, right? Like, so you're telling me to bring you facts for something that's never happened.
You're saying it's not a real issue.
I'm saying it's illegal, and I can't, it's like if I asked you, there's a potential harm, but no, we have no facts because it's never been done. It's like that doesn't hold water because it's never been done.
What do you mean to say it's illegal?
Well, the chancellor came out in an unofficial way, even though I know that there are administrators meeting with Kamala Harris and teachers from SMC meeting with Kamala Harris, which concerns me right now. But they came out in an unofficial capacity and said that contract.
If the Attorney General came out with a written opinion tomorrow saying that contract ed is illegal, we would not be barred by that.
That's scary.
The Attorney General opinion is not binding.
That's concerning.
It has to be ruled
Only a court can decide that.
That's concerning.
Well, it may not matter. It's conceivable. I hope it never happens. It's conceivable the matter can go to court.
I was just going to say if there is a...
I
was going to say if there is a legal opinion, that should be on your fact sheet.
A legal
That's
opinion?
a fact. If the Attorney General gives a legal
Karen,
opinion...
And the Chancellor, yeah.
Johnny,
Yeah.
you have to
Wait, who, me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. I agree.
You don't want to speak, Terry?
No, I do.
I just had a couple of suggestions for your fact sheet if you're open to that. I think that it does create a disincentive for the state legislators to fund because they're really tight for money, and I don't know how you can phrase that as a fact, but I think you ought to think about that because that's a real dynamic. They don't have the money. They're going to go to whoever is screaming the loudest. So if Santa Monica figures out a way to pay for itself, it's pretty logical, I would think, that creates a disincentive. Maybe we disagree, but I think that is a real dynamic. The last one I would answer your question on the long term, I think it is. Short-term and long-term solutions are not mutually exclusive. They are not. But you could identify some short-term solutions do undermine long-term solutions.
The
And
slippery slope argument.
you need to be specific about if you think that contract ed solution is a short-term solution that undermines your long-term goals or values, that does need to be defined clearly in specific language.
Yeah.
Not just our kind of idealism.
I think those are good suggestions.
Oh, I was just going to offer a lump sum opinion, kind of all the things that I've heard here. By the way, you guys are really kind of barred in by the parliamentary procedure. There's no room for free debate and discussion on topics, and I kind of get that frustration that you all feel. But anyways, moving on.
It's designed for that.
Say what?
It's designed for that.
Right, but it shouldn't be. It's inorganic. But moving on. There's a reason that phrases exist such as nip it in the bud and the seed of an idea, and I agree with Josh when he was trying to communicate beforehand, but I do like your general approach to the whole thing, keeping everything corralled and kind of having a point and an arrow and a focus. But I think Josh is spot on. Once you get onto that slippery slope, all it takes is like one little kernel, and then eventually that gets fertilized, and then it starts cropping up all over the place. And then you do get into this whole thing of the privatization of education, because it is a public service, and that is the reason it was implemented, to provide an opportunity for everybody. Because when education was the most free and easy and widely accessible, that is when the country profited completely. We're talking about the 50s, during the time of the Cold War, when America as a country knew that, hey, education is how we have our upper hand in the sciences and the maths and the English and the, the literature and the whole thing down the line. And as we've seen that kind of decrease, and as we've seen that go into the other direction, into which we're saying, well, education can kind of take more of a back burner. We've put in a lot of funds and resources into that. Maybe we can kind of cut it off, 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 cut it off. And then we have like this whole thing of, well, what's that thing? The frog in the pot of boiling water. Then you have that whole thing where it's very gradual to the point that you don't realize it's happening until it's very much too late. But I think we're in a situation where it's very much too late. So now we have this gashing open wound, and we're trying to, wrap paper towels around it with rubber bands and saying this is a solution for now, when that's not the case. What you have to go in is you have to anesthetize the area. You have to stitch it up. You can't paper something over it and assume that that's going to fix a very long-term systemic problem. So you cannot solve long-term issues with short-term solutions. In fact, that is counterproductive, because you are looking at a long-term thing, taping it together and saying, okay, good, that's done, and then you stop paying attention to it.
So then the fact sheet should spell out why.
Okay, I agree. That's all I have to say.
Can I just say something before I leave? One of the things I want to encourage each and every one of you individually, I want to call you by name, but I don't have the time, is please try to find a way to get the candidates that are running this year at your board meeting on Monday. That's one of the problems with the structure of AS boards, because the fact is, you're here 2 years at the most, 1 year on your board and you're gone. And when the other students that are coming in aren't involved in what's going on, it takes you several steps backward to catch up. So they need to be a part of this discussion. So do what you can to get them here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge, for sharing your time with the students.
Thanks for letting me come.
So it's me, Johnny, Josh, Marco, and then David.
Wait, I'm not understanding all
You didn't raise your hand.
Put her in my list. I'm not
Judge Finkel, just before you leave, you were questioning how sure, fine. How contract education would be detrimental to subsidized classes.
Subsidized students.
Subsidized students. I don't see how hard it is to believe that the state will fund us less and less when they are currently doing so.